Radio.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Another case representing the carnage and fallout from the open borders during the Biden administration and the sanctuary jurisdictions that championed open borders and served as a dumping ground for people who entered this country illegally. States like, Illinois, California. Bill Malugin, Fox News, interviewed the families of the fathers, actually, of two teens who were killed by an illegal alien who crashed into them while drunk, high, and speeding at more than 100 miles an hour in Orange County in 2021. That individual was actually found, taken into custody, prosecuted, got a 10-year sentence for killing two teenagers, boyfriend and girlfriend. But now he's getting out just 3 years later. And you can imagine the dads of the victims are not happy.
They told me there was a horrible incident. My son and his girlfriend, Anya, basically were burned alive in their car. She was my daughter.
Anya's father, Anatoly, got a similar knock on the door that night.
He said Anya's name. I said, yes, it's my daughter. My wife came downstairs and she was screaming and cried. She said, no, 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 no.
In spring of 2022, a jury convicted Oscar Eduardo Ortega Anguiano on 2 counts of gross vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated. A judge sentenced him to 10 years. But on Easter Sunday, the family say they received this notice from the California Department of Corrections that on July 19th, he'll be getting out.
2 years for killing 2 kids. It's confusing to me. Why you give them 10 if they're going to spend 5 and then 3?
Yeah, 2 young, productive American citizens killed for nothing. And that illegal immigrant who already has been deported twice is going to be released again?
ICE confirmed to Fox News they placed a detainer on the convicted felon in question with the California Department of Corrections and intend to take him into custody upon release. They hope the California Department of Corrections will honor the detainer request and transfer him to their custody upon his release. In Illinois, they wouldn't.
They just let him go, as they have in the past. Dennis McCann being one of them.
A victim, right?
Right, the victim.
Yeah, the man who killed Dennis McCann.
Saul Chavez was his name.
Yeah, it's just. I don't think you need to sell past the close on this because the supermajority of Americans are with President Trump on this. I think they recognize the barbarism of the policies of the Biden administration. I just hope they continue to hold the barbarians of that ilk accountable. The preening Chris Van Hollen in El Salvador, the Ayanna Pressley going to visit Mahmoud Khalil at an ICE detention center, and the Pritzker who's threatening a divestment, boycott, and sanction of El Salvador with respect to all of those people should be held accountable because they are all suborning these tragedies, the preventable crimes, the preventable deaths and maimings and victimization. They're all suborning this with everything they do, and it's in full display right now in the Abrigo Garcia case.
But who's the ally of these people? The Supreme Court, the federal judges. They're losing their credibility as they speak. As we tell these stories, the people look at the judges and say, what are they doing? And then they lose faith in the judicial system, and once they do that, there's no going back.
Well, in advance of our next guest, a conversation on this topic, among others, since he is a Minnesotan, I'm sure he has heard, but you just can never hear too much from Tim Walz and his family. Here's Tim Walz's daughter, Hope, who clearly has been properly indoctrinated by mom and dad.
If Jesus were alive today and in the United States, this administration would have already taken him and removed him from this country without due process, claimed he was a member of the MS-13 gang as a way to try to justify not giving him due process, as if there is any justifiable reason to not giving somebody due process. But yeah, some people don't want to talk about that.
Well,
It truly is baffling how clear and laid out everything is, and there is still people standing by it. I believe in the good of people and like humanity, humans, deep down at our core, like we care about each other. But that's really being tested, because how anyone is okay with this is terrifying to me. But yeah, if you look like me, speak up, speak out, because we might be the only ones safe from what's coming and some of the only people that are able to stop it. So yeah, it's our duty at this point.
White women of the world unite.
She should know that Empress Irene of Byzantium would pour molten silver into the eyes of the heretics to teach them a lesson. And I think not that I want anything bad to happen to the poster child of Timmy Walz's daughter, but talking about Jesus in that way is some sort of heresy to me.
Yeah. She's not saying Abrego Garcia is Jesus. He's just Jesus-like. John Hinderaker is the president of the Center of the American Experiment, and he's a contributor to PowerlineBlog.com. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, great to be with you, Dan.
So once Tim Walz leaves, he's going to turn the keys of the governor's mansion over to Hope, I'm presuming?
Well, let's hope not, so to speak. Hope, our listeners might not know this or might not remember it, but in the middle of the George Floyd riots, which went on for days, and Walz was very slow to call out the National Guard, waited for days to do it, Hope Walz tweeted a heads up to rioters that, contrary to what some people were reporting, the National Guard was not going to be deployed that night. So, go ahead.
Take another police station, burn that to the ground, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it is wild times. How is certainly in the context of this discussion about border security and the cause celeb that Abrego Garcia has become for the left, I assume that would include Tim Walz. How is his comedy tour going as he tries to maintain himself as a national figure?
Well, I think it's done. I think he's back in Minnesota. Minnesota is facing a $6 billion budget deficit following a surplus which our legislature squandered. They spent every penny of it, and now we're facing a deficit. And so Tim Walz is actually getting some criticism in the local press for being completely AWOL during this legislative session. I mean, he hasn't been in town, he hasn't been involved, hasn't been doing anything, and now these budget discussions are going on, and it's kind of a where's Waldo, where's Tim Walz?
What's he doing?
Well, I think he's deliberating. I think he's back in town, by the way, now. I think he's deliberating what office to run for next. He may run for a third term as governor in 2026. His term will be up. I have speculated that he's thinking about running for president, and that's why he went on tour with people like Bernie Sanders and Beto O'Rourke, drawing crowds of far-left Democrats, that he might think he can nail down the leftward-most spot on the spectrum and compete against Gavin Newsom in the primaries.
A lot of competition for that slot. The Trump administration's efforts thus far, in the first nearing 90 days, so far with respect to border security. I mean, it's certainly we saw some polling earlier this week on CNN, of all places, where he is enjoying majority support for deporting everyone here illegally, where the focus right now is still just on those public safety threats and stories like the one we just brought to you out of California I think are only going to increase the public's appetite for more of what the Trump administration has done thus far, for the most part, don't you?
Yeah, well, Dan, Joe Biden's enticing of 10 million or more illegals to cross our southern border was the worst abuse, the worst infringement of the rule of law in our country's history.
Yes.
And to me, it's not hard to figure out. I mean, if a person is here illegally, he should be deported, period. Now, obviously, you prioritize the ones that are the most dangerous. But, I mean, what Trump is doing is trying to restore the rule of law after it was just traduced by Joe Biden.
But what happens to that rule of law when the federal judiciary repeatedly and in concert basically makes a ruling like I just read about? If any president, we cannot go against what other presidents have done. So I think the line is used. A number of judges have seemingly adopted a constitutional meta principle. What a past president did, President Trump may not undo. Now, what happened?
A past Democratic president, anyway. So
right.
what we're seeing is careful judge shopping on the part of the Democratic Party. All of these cases that they've brought, they have all been brought in jurisdictions where they know it is overwhelmingly probable, if not certain, that they are going to get a loyal Democrat assigned to the case. And so they're doing everything they can to throw monkey wrenches into everything that the Trump administration is trying to accomplish. And then, of course, when the midterms come around, they'll say, oh, don't vote for the Republicans. They didn't get anything done. Right? That's the strategy.
So why is Roberts going along with it?
Well, I'm not sure that he is. The Supreme Court hasn't really done much of anything yet. They issued that one midnight order, which was a very temporary stay. I thought it was ill-advised. I thought Alito's defense his dissent was great. But the Supreme Court has not really weighed in, and at some point they're going to have to take up some of these basic issues. My own view is that when you've got 10 million people here illegally, so what is due process? The Supreme Court has often said that due process is the process that is due under the circumstances. And if you've got 10 million illegals that you need to deport, they're not all going to get a trial, okay? If you're trying to give them all a trial, we're all going to be dead, including them, by the time that process is done. And so the way this should play out is that the administration should deport these folks as best they can, round them up and identify them. A lot of them, of course, will self-deport. If they inadvertently deport a citizen or a legal resident, he can raise his hand when he gets to, El Salvador or, Timbuktu and say, no, I was wrongly deported. I'm actually a citizen. And he can, a lawyer will reach out to him and he'll hire a lawyer and he'll become a millionaire.
I'm a Maryland man. I'm a father.
Right, exactly. But that hasn't happened. I mean, as far as we know, there's not a single person who has been wrongfully deported.
Well, it's interesting to see the efforts afoot from those Dem politicians I mentioned. And, with the announcement yesterday in Illinois that Dick Durbin is not seeking re-election, we have another opportunity to sort of take stock of where that party is going to go. And boy, it seems to me, throw in the Stop Oligarchy tour with Comrade Bernie and AOC, it seems to me that this idea that there is going to be some move to the center, that's just not where the center mass of the party is right now.
No, it certainly isn't. I mean, the only sign of that we've seen is Gavin Newsom tacking a little bit to the right, probably more symbolically than substantively. But that's something. And he obviously is trying to position himself for 2028. But I think the majority of the Democratic Party is moving the other direction. You've seen the polling on AOC and Chuck Schumer, by the way. If she decides to run against Schumer in the Democratic primary, I think she'll win.
Yeah. Yeah, and as Mark Penn said, if Nate Silver calling her sort of the lead horse right now in terms of the 2028 nomination for president, which is just mind-boggling. And it was mind-boggling to Mark Penn, Hillary Clinton's former pollster, who said earlier in the week, if she is the nominee in 2028, then we're going to go back to being a party that wins one state in presidential elections.
That would be wonderful to see, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would, sure would. That's why I'm a proponent.
I have one word of caution, though, Dan, and that is that when a party that is out comes back into power, it's not usually because a lot of voters have philosophically changed their minds. It's usually because they got tired of the party that's in. And, who's the alternative, right? Whoever the alternative is, they get elected. And so I think we need to be very careful. If Donald Trump makes too many missteps, it may very well be that voters are ready to turn to the alternative in 2028, and that's the Democrats. And I don't think it's out of the question that a far-left Democrat might actually win.
Yeah, it's troubling, but certainly a proper cautionary note.
We should all watch the killing fields in anticipation of that prospect.
It's even a more chilling thought. John Hinderaker, president of the Center of the American Experiment, contributor to Powerline, powerlineblog.com. John, thank you as always.
Great to be with you, Dan.
And he joined us on the Turnkey Pro Answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer. Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.